Just gonna do that. Okay. Hey, everybody. So this is my first recording or first video since June. I went home for break and haven't recorded anything since, but the goal for this year was to continue to record. So that's what we're doing. And my first guest back on the YouTube channel, the podcast, is my brother, Isaiah. Isaiah has extensive knowledge about our education system. He has a little bit of insight. So I felt like he would be the perfect person to have this conversation with. And well, more so because one of the pillars or one of the things for Girl Uprising is career exploration and education. And there has been just a theme on social media, TikTok, period. I don't know if you've seen it, Zaya, where teachers are voicing their opinions on the state of our education system. And they're like, I don't know if it's the teachers, I don't know if it's the students. Whose fault is it?
Mm,
You know,
I've heard of it, definitely.
yeah, yeah. So we're gonna have a little chat and get to know my brother a little bit more and get his opinion and just to kind of get some insight on what he's doing. I do want you to kind of go into detail or just a broad overview of what you're doing currently in your PhD program. So Isaiah for short, is a PhD candidate, and he is due to graduate early 2025.
This
Okay,
year,
2025.
no, well, this academic year, school
Okay,
year. Yeah.
here we go. All right. So, do you want to give everybody a brief overview of yourself? Maybe.
Sure, I
Okay.
can do that.
Thank you.
First and foremost, thank you to the beautiful and talented Akila Moore for having me on. I really appreciate it. Um, I have the utmost respect for Black women.
Oh,
Um, so I appreciate being here. Um, while I also acknowledge that I am not a Black woman, so I can't speak extensively
are you?
to those. Yeah, far from it. However, I've had some interactions with Black women. Grew up with them. Like you said, my name is Isaiah Moore. I have been around education since forever. I know it started when you and I were young, Kiki. And our
Oh,
mother um, introduced us to Hooked on Phonics. I remember like those boxes coming when she ordered the Hooked on Phonics.
yay.
I was so excited that was before Amazon Prime. So like I was excited that something came to the door and everything. And she kind of tricked us into it, but she was really consistent. Like every
I
day we were reading something or whatever.
Mama made learning fun for us.
We were also
So,
young.
yeah, yeah, but she made it an enjoyable experience. Like
Mhm.
we had school for real.
Yeah,
So,
right. Yeah, like we literally sat down but you know what? I was excited to learn to read. You
yeah,
know,
me too.
I think she made that or she kind of like lit that fire.
Oh,
And my mom wanted to be a teacher. She grew up wanting to be a teacher.
oh,
So it is quite ironic that I grew up and became a teacher. Um,
oh.
and hated it. Hated it at first
Is it?
because that's not what I wanted to do. Um, but like I had some life events that kind of like turned me around. Um, and I will say this, like I was never a bad teacher. Like people always thought that
Okay.
I was great at it.
Hmm.
But it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Life events kind of changed your perspective, and got even better at it, changed my attitude, started to make a difference. Um, and that difference wasn't just like, intangible, where it was, kids like, oh, you cool because you're young and you wear Nikes to school
You
and
wear
you wear
dunks.
beanies. Yeah, or dunks or whatever. there were academic gains
Okay.
and state tests that were taken. And I'm not saying that to boast or saying that it's my doing,
Mm.
but under my tutelage, kids were able to do those things. They were creative. Kids created professional development for teachers under my tutelage. Um, so I did that for a while. I became the lead English teacher at my school. Then I oh for that I mean in that role I was acknowledged by the superintendent of the school district. They gave me
Mhm.
an award. Um, Realized that I had still had some questions about education. Um, and I'm really curious, like wanted to inquire about those things. So I decided to hop into a PhD program. So right now I'm at Virginia Commonwealth University. I study education policy. um, while my research line extends in different ways. I look at the intersection of housing and schooling. I look
Mhm.
at community school partnerships. Um, right now, I am in dissertation phase.
Okay.
Um, so I am ABD, all but dissertation.
Oh.
And right now, what I'm looking at is political polarization's impact on community connected instruction in full service community schools. So I'm not going to talk all about that. I get because
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure I'll get into it later with some other questions, but yeah, that's what kind of gives me some leeway to talk about education. I've been
Okay.
around it for a while.
Yeah.
Um, so like I really believe, yeah, so I've been around it for a while and I try to stay informed. I really believe in this quote, like, you're not entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your informed opinion.
Mm.
So I try to live by that. And I feel like I've been informed when it comes to this whole
Mhm.
education policy thing. Not that I know everything, but
Mhm.
I'm working at it.
Okay. Informed opinion. I think that's what a lot of people don't do on TikTok or social media, period. And you can tell just when it comes to how people present the information. It's like you didn't do any type of research. You've been hurt or you think this is your experience and your experience only, and you can only speak to that. You have like
Hmm.
a limited view, but
And see,
oh,
I would even venture to say like it's not about being informed because right now in the technology age, people are more informed than ever. I
mm,
think we lack critical thinking skills
ooh,
and how to like parse through what's real and what's fake. So
hmm,
we'll whatever we consume because like all information ain't true information.
okay.
So the information that we get in, whatever we consume, we decide to spit that back out without saying, "Oh, well, let me see if this can be real," or "How does this fit into this narrative? What's the context around this?" We don't think critically about the information we get.
I don't think that and when I say we, I just mean like the general public or the TikTok streets, the social media streets. I don't think it's set up that way because if a lot of people took the time to actually look through certain information and say, "Hey, this is incredible," then there wouldn't be a consensus. And I think that's the whole point of social media. It's like there's a group think theme.
Mhm.
It's like if you say, "Hey, dogs can turn into cats at 12 p.m."
Mhm.
I've never seen that. I mean, I know how to do research or whatever, but if your topic is trending, then I'm like, "Yep, they sure do." You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's like it's not a I think the push is to not question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can see that like one of the issues is that like things are coming at you so fast, so
Hmm.
quickly. We don't have time to process what
Hmm.
we see. So it's like, especially on TikTok. I don't have a TikTok,
Well,
but
maybe you need
from
to get
what
one.
people absolutely not
I
after
think you
what you
should.
just said, like where
But
people just up there
I
consuming
think you
stuff.
should. Well, it's that it has its pros and its cons because I think that there's so much that you can learn from TikTok.
Hmm.
And I think you're old enough, mature enough, and wise enough to be able to sift through information. Now, somebody who is like a young child,
Hmm.
I don't think it's healthy for them because they can't put limits and boundaries down. And I think you can.
Which is true, but I also think that, like you already said, I'm too old for that stuff. Like
Boy.
especially right now in this phase of my life, I
Mm,
can't take anything else. Like I'm dissertating and that is it. I'm trying to find a job. That's that's the other thing.
I get it. I get it. So I wanted to ask you about parents selecting schools for their kids. I don't have kids, but when I talk to my friends with children, they seem to be really invested in the school that their child goes to. So they move to a certain area, they
Mm,
make sure that their child is in a certain program, private school. What are some of the things that a parent can or should look for when it comes to selecting a school for their elementary school age child or just a child, period?
mm, That's a good question.
Thank you.
Um, and I think we might want to step back a little bit
Okay.
because, eh, or at least in the education policy realm, when you say
Okay.
like selecting schools, are you referring to like school choice, like what we're hearing in the media nowadays, like vouchers and charter schools and all of those things?
Well, enlighten me because what does that mean?
Yeah, yeah. So school choice
Mm-hmm.
is exactly what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I get to choose what school my kids go to.
Mm,
And I think at face value, that sounds like really, really good, right?
mm-hmm.
But then you have to think about, oh, why do they have to choose?
Hmm.
Like why are parents choosing like no, they can't go to this school.
Mhm,
They have to go to this school. So if you look historically at school choice
mhm.
and these policies, school choice originated around the time that Brown versus Board of Education was passed. We
Okay.
know that Brown versus Board of Education was legislative or monumental legislation that said separate but equal was no longer, first of all, it was not feasible, and is no longer constitutional.
Okay.
So that meant that we have to integrate our schools. So white kids can't go to school with just white kids, and black kids
Mhm,
can't just go to school with black kids, because again, those environments weren't equal. Um, so when the Supreme Court decided to do that, certain parents
mhm.
decided that they wanted school choice. So what does that mean? That
Mm,
means that instead of us staying in urban areas where there are larger proportions of minority students,
mhm,
we'll move out to the outskirts so our kids can go to school here.
hmm,
Or that means we'll create our own schools. So instead of going to school with those kids or
mhm,
them, we'll make our own school. Matter of fact, here in where I am from, in
mhm,
Norfolk,
mhm.
schools were shut down for 2 years
Sheesh.
because white folks decided that they didn't want to go to school with us. Like I'm talking
Come on
about,
now.
they shut the school system down.
Crazy.
So that's the origination of
Hmm.
school choice. And you think about, matter of fact, we call them segregation academies, right? These schools that white folks would create not to go to school with us. And some of those schools are still in existence today. Now, they're not called segregation
Yeah.
academies,
I
but
hope not.
yeah, they were created during that time for that purpose, and they are
Mm,
still functioning right now.
okay.
So when you look at school choice, what are the consequences of that?
Mhm.
There's a lack of social cohesion, right? So if there isn't a diverse group of kids going to school together, then we have kids growing up not knowing how to interact with each other, right? So being that the United States is so diverse, we can't come together on common ground because we don't know how to interact in diverse environments or to see other people's views and respect those people's views. Another consequence of segregated schools is academic performance.
Hmm.
Many studies show that children in segregated schools, which or primarily minority students, Black and brown students, their grades suffer. They don't do as well.
Hmm.
Um, Another consequence of segregated schools is disproportionate funding. So this is how it works. If schools are funded largely by personal property taxes,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
If I move to a rich area and go to that
Mm.
public school, then those people are taking care of their school. But if I stay in
Mm.
a area where there's not a high tax base,
Mhm.
then my school suffers. I don't get the teachers that are a credential. I don't get the school resources and things of
Mm.
that nature. So when you talk about school choice,
Hmm. It's
um,
deeper.
right,
Okay.
that's where it comes from, right? So now they're not packaging it like that,
Of course.
segregation and things of that nature. But the consequences remain the
Mhm.
same. So in saying that, I believe different parents have different responsibilities when it comes
Okay.
to school
Tell
choice.
us tell us
Um,
more.
Without getting into the weeds of it,
Mhm.
certain people have certain social capital,
Okay.
um, economic power, things of that nature.
Mhm.
I don't think it is incumbent of people who have those things to take their resources and hoard them with other people like themselves. Does that make sense?
So yeah, but you already know. You already
W-
know how some people are gonna look at that because people will say, well, I got it out the mud. I came up the ranks and I deserve to be in this neighborhood. I deserve for my kids to not go to a certain type of school
Mhm,
and I'll help them when I can. I'll
mhm.
donate, I'll give to the food pantry, but I don't think when it comes to their kids' education, I don't think they would even think of it like that because I wasn't even.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and this is what we talk about being informed,
Mhm.
or social media at face value, it looks like this is good. School choice,
Yeah.
yeah, why can't I just choose?
Yeah.
Because there are so many things that are attached to that, you know. And while I do believe that like we should be able to choose,
Mhm.
I think, and I know that our kids are most important because they are our kids.
Mhm.
But I also believe that in the back of our minds, we should want what we want for our kids should be what we want for every kid. So we should work towards that,
Mhm.
not separate ourselves from, making that a reality.
Yeah.
So like if you are and that it's happening a lot, especially in like
Mhm.
these urban centers, you know, where people move because it's cool, or
Mhm.
people with money move to these cities because it's cool to stay in an urban area and have walkable communities and have a Trader Joe's right down the street from your house and then a park right here, a dog
Mhm.
park and a Starbucks and all that stuff. But then their kids don't go to the schools in that community.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. So they are essentially opting out of their social responsibility, which
Okay.
is to give back to that community.
So that's what that social responsibility. I don't think people Or maybe they are. I don't think people are aware of that
Hmm.
or they consider that when selecting a school because I mean, I know it just from speaking to people with kids. That's their line of thought is I live in a certain neighborhood. I moved to a certain neighborhood to for my kids to go to a specific school, but you don't consider the other kids. You know, you
Hmm.
don't consider the children who are in an impoverished community and who do not have funding. But I understand why someone who would like their children to be in a certain environment,
Hmm.
why they wouldn't move to a certain place. You know, I get that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And not, like, nothing is perfect, right? Like,
Mhm.
the reality that we are in now is our starting point.
Okay.
And that reality is some schools produce high academic values and
Mhm.
have great teachers and have great environments, and some schools do not. And I'm not saying that we should just flood these schools that aren't producing at the at the rate that we want. But I do think that it is our responsibility to make sure that we can give back to those schools
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
And that may not even be sending your kids there,
Mhm.
but because you live in that community, it means keeping a pulse on the policy that governs that school.
Mm.
Um, so the kids that do go
Mhm.
there, you want to still positively affect that community. I was talking to my friend about that, who stays in LA, and he was like,
Mhm.
"Well, I send my daughter here because the school in our community doesn't appear to be safe,
Mhm.
or the grades that they get from the state boards of education aren't all that high, which is another thing that's political and things of that nature. Um, so I definitely understand you wanting to
Mhm.
put your kid in the best place possible, but that still doesn't mean that you should neglect your social responsibility of ameliorating that community in
Mm.
that school.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think that now that you're going to be on social media, I think that should be your
That's-
I mean, because I think people not enough people are making informed decisions.
Mhm,
And sometimes you do have to do the legwork for people and say, "Hey, this is why you probably should consider this."
mhm.
And if they know, then they, may choose to say, oh, "Okay, well, let me go to this what do you call it?
School board meeting.
School board meeting.
Mhm.
Let me go because I know that they are talking about this and even though my kids don't go cuz I to be honest, I wouldn't even think like I wouldn't even go to a school board meeting because I don't have kids.
But your money still pays for them.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Mhm,
You see what I'm saying? But if I think if you shed light or if we know like, hey, you need to be in attendance because they're talking about this and your money is going to X, Y, and Z, you're like, I'm going, you know?
and not only that, right? But, like, we espouse being this democratic society,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Where all of these things are supposed to happen, but, like, that's part of democracy.
Hmm.
Making your voice heard. Like, this is your community. So I agree. I will say though, like, I don't want people to listen to this and then to think that I am against choice. I am
Okay.
definitely not against choice. I am for choice. I am not for unfettered choice. So unfettered choice means, like,
Thank you.
choosing however they want to. You know
Mm-hmm.
what? I, I want vouchers. Vouchers are, I talk to the state,
Mm-hmm.
the money that would have gone to that public school is now taken out, and then I go give it to a private school because that's where I want to go. I am not for the proliferation of schools, meaning, like, you just keep creating all of these different schools because um, then you have to, like, spread that money that comes in to all of these different schools. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? So, like, you end up having to close schools, and the schools that you close are going
Mm-hmm.
to be more than likely our schools, because they were already underperforming. So I'm for choice, but I need some restrictions around our choice. And I think if we created better schools, um,
Hmm.
then that wouldn't be as hard. There are places that are doing that, right? Um, so I think it's somewhere in the Bay, like Berkeley, they
Hmm.
have a school choice policy, but it's
Hmm.
it's in that district, right? So they have magnet schools. And if you're not familiar with magnet schools have a specialty, a specific curriculum tied to
Hmm.
that school, and it's supposed to draw people from different parts of the city.
Okay.
So, case in point, I went to a magnet
Me
school. You went
too.
to a magnet school.
I'm
Matter of
like, did
fact,
I?
you went to two. You went to
Did
Mercy
I?
High
Oh,
School.
what was
Mhm.
Huntington?
Huntington was mass communications. Remember?
Oh,
That's why
no.
we had like the morning announcements and stuff. Like Mr. Goler who did
Oh,
the camera and all
Mr.
of that.
Goler.
Yeah. So magnet schools were designed to integrate
Uh,
schools, right?
okay.
So
Okay.
we don't just have a certain, I mean, we do have like a catchment zone or a school zone, right? Where
Okay.
kids from these communities attend this school, but
Uh-huh.
it's also open to kids all over the
Hmm.
city who want to participate in mass
Okay.
communications. So that's why you had some kids from Dresden
Okay.
coming to Huntington downtown.
Okay.
Yes, that's why you lived downtown, but you
Hmm.
were able to go 30-40 minutes
Yeah.
across the city for
Yeah.
high school because
Yeah.
of the music program. So those are like school choice policies that
Hmm.
that can be equitable, right?
Hmm.
um, because that ultimately that's the goal. You want to have school choice policies that are equitable.
Equitable. You brought up some words. You said social responsibility. So I want to just plug that as a nugget in your head. But can you cover, like, what are the different types of public schools, I guess, if you had to like categorize them under a large umbrella? I know
Mm.
you said magnet. What are some of the other types of schools?
Mm. So I think you have like schools and schooling models.
Okay.
So you have like traditional public schools. Those are the schools that we went to, right? They
Mhm.
are typically your older schools. Then you have your magnets, where they decide to put a special curriculum there, um, to attract people from different parts of the city.
Mhm.
You can have charter schools.
Okay.
Charter schools can be public. They can also be private as well.
Hmm.
But they are usually governed, not as traditional schools are. They may have like a board. Um, they also um, funding is different there, and they don't always have to follow certain rules
Hmm.
that traditional public schools do. So in in order to get that leeway, they have to produce certain things, which are like certain grades or certain test scores, things like that. So you
Okay.
have charter schools. We have this new thing out. I wrote an op-ed on this in the Richmond Times called Lab Schools.
You have to
Lab
send me the
schools,
link.
indeed, lab schools um, kind of mimic charter schools to a certain
Mhm.
degree. But what happens, lab schools are usually tied to a university or something like that. And what happens, like think of a lab where experiments happen.
Mhm.
So you try out new pedagogies or new ways to teach on
Okay.
students there. You may try a new program there. Your teacher, like your pre-service teachers in that school of higher education
Mm.
may come and do lessons there. So it's kind of like a lab,
Mm.
right? Where I mean, not ethically, but like teachers may come and like try different things on students. They try new programs and curriculum.
Mm.
Um, so those are, at least off the top of my head, the types of public
Gotcha.
schools. There can be, of course, you have like your parochial, which are like private schools.
Thank you.
Parochial is like a private school that is tied to a religion. So
Okay.
Catholic schools would be
Okay.
parochial,
Okay.
something like that. And then the school that or the schooling model that I am really big on is like full service community schools or community schools.
Okay.
Um, so they are public schools. However, they do things differently.
Mhm.
They try to attend to the whole child. So, and they're usually in areas where the students need some help. So,
Mm.
impoverished areas. So, they offer more services. Students may need mental health.
Okay.
They may have like a mental health clinic on site.
Mhm.
They tend to engage the community and the parents. So you may have like a large ESL population. They may
Mhm.
have like English classes on weekends for the
Okay.
parents.
Mm.
They do these things called dine-ins where, maybe once a month they'll have the teachers eat dinner with the parents and the student, and the teachers will help the students out with their homework so
No,
the
I like
parents can see
that.
how that works.
Oh.
So community schools, and it's usually wrapped around the community. It's what we call like a place-based strategy.
Okay.
So our students or the students in communities would work to kind of uplift the community. We
Okay.
involve the community in education,
Okay.
things like that. I
That's a
believe
good
it to be a
idea.
more democratic way of teaching and
Okay.
learning, of education. Um, so that's what I'm doing my dissertation on right
Okay.
now.
Okay. I like that concept because
And
it
you need to,
seems like the students are involved, the parents are involved, the community, they probably do community projects too,
Mhm. So
probably.
yes, they do. So my
Okay.
dissertation is on what's called community connected instruction, right?
Okay.
And it sounds exactly like what it is. The instruction involves the community. Um, so and it's usually culturally relevant.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
I can give you like some examples.
Please do.
One, there was I think it was in Colorado, and we were working with, or they were working with some Native American students,
Mhm.
and they had an objective in school about like interviewing and writing, and
Mm.
writing that stuff up. So what the teacher asked them to do was go interview your parents and your grandparents about like what life was like about the Native American tribe that lived here. We're going to write it up, maybe even write some or draw pictures and things like that. And then we'll take that stuff. We're going to work with the museum, the local museum, and we'll have an exhibit and you can present there. So you see
Oh.
how like they are touching out to community organizations. They're getting the family involved.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like culturally affirming,
Mm.
like, oh, you want to know about my culture,
Mhm.
when um, in reality, um, far too often we're
Mhm.
learning about a culture that isn't ours.
Okay.
You know?
Somebody else.
Or for another example, in LA, a group of students had this intersect, or they were asked, "What are some problems in your community?" And they kind of centered around this intersection that was causing trouble. I think people were getting there were car accidents.
Mhm.
Some students had been hit at that intersection. So what they did, they partnered with the local School of Education, their urban planning program,
Mhm.
and they used the skills that they got in their classes and with the urban education student or urban planning students, and they kind of like reimagined what that intersection would look like, and
Mhm.
they presented it. Now I'm not saying it got instituted, but like
Yeah.
community connected instruction.
I like that because I think for one thing, it teaches kids how things are connected. Like
Mhm,
if you see something in your community, you don't have to just stand by and just be like, oh, nothing I can do. Like you do have a voice, like you can do something about it or something can be done. And to
mhm,
kind of let them, know broadly, like these are some of the steps that you could take if needed. So I like
mhm.
that.
and it like I was a teacher, so I got the same question all the time. Like, why do we have to do this?
Mhm.
This ain't in the real world. Well, yes, it is. Like you you have to write, right?
You better
Because
do
you're
it.
writing these instructions for this intersection, and
Mhm.
that's really important. Like you can't mess up on your spelling, and
Oh,
you can't be vague in your directions
yeah,
when it comes to people driving in an intersection
yeah.
because we can cause crashes or things like that. Geometry, we need to know like the certain angle
Mhm.
stuff, like why won't this
Mm,
work, because those angles don't fit together,
mm.
so it's taking the objectives from school, um,
Okay,
and like actually implementing them in the community,
that's good.
so yeah, it's
Okay.
really dope idea, very very dope idea. However,
Mhm.
certain legislation is kind of like thwarting that type of learning because it can be culturally relevant, right?
It does it have
Um,
anything to do with funding, or is it just like I don't want people to explore their culture. I don't want that to be the push, or is it
well, yeah,
funding?
so it's I think it's more so the first one, so they consider it like CRT, critical
Mhm.
race theory, right?
Mhm.
When you're telling the truth about our country's history, or you offer another perspective, it doesn't line up with the normative perspective, or what they've learned. So they're like pushing back against that. So that's what I'm studying.
Okay.
Like how was that type of instruction
Mhm.
impacted by these culture wars or political polarization? This legislation that is going around, whether it be Florida,
Mhm.
Georgia, Mississippi, Arkansas, saying you can't talk about these things, right? Like, no, they're literally creating laws where it's like, oh, you can't say that one race is inherently bad because of what their forefathers did, or because they were born you know, this ethnicity or race or whatever. Um, and like I said, they are vague laws,
Mhm.
so people are scared to even just touch on race,
Mm.
to touch on sexuality and gender, things of that nature. So yeah, that's what I'm studying in full service community schools.
Okay. I can't wait to. Can I see it? Sit. I can sit on your dissertation, can't I?
On my defense.
Defense. I can
Mhm.
sit in. Okay. Well, with all of those options that parents have or guardians, have to put their children in school, who do you think is at fault for the state of our education system? Do you think that there's an issue for one? Is it the parents' fault? Is it the school system's fault? Whose fault is it?
Do I think that there's an issue
Mhm.
with our school system?
Yeah.
Public school or just education in general?
I would say education in general. And
Yeah.
and I say that because I don't know why these types of videos come across my TikTok, but I get a lot of videos of teachers voicing their opinion, complaining about the state of education. And they're just like, kids are high school, they have comprehension skills, they don't have comprehension skills, or, kids in high school are reading on a fourth grade level. Um, the kids don't want to do anything. Like, so there seems to be something going on in our
Hmm.
education system. And it's like, okay, it's no discipline in the school. They can't teach. So something is definitely going on. And I think we want to have somebody to blame, or we want to have something to blame. We want to be able to pinpoint a reason why things are the way that they are. And I don't think it's that simple. But from your from your background, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you answered it. Like
Oh,
it's definitely not simple. Like, I mean, even from this short conversation that we've had, we talked
mm-hmm,
about disparities in funding, right? We
mm,
talked about people, I think, doing what they think is right. Like, oh, I got to get my kid to the best school,
mm-hmm,
you know. And when they do that, they don't realize how that affects
mm,
everyone else, the whole ecosystem, you know.
mm,
We talk about, I talked about community schools and
mm-hmm,
how community organizations come into the schools and help out. What about the community organizations that aren't doing that?
mm,
Like that can be done in traditional schools,
yeah,
right? But not all schools or community organizations are doing those things. Um,
mm,
so there is, wherever you look, there is a role for everyone,
mm,
you know, to make education better. Um, have we all been doing what we are supposed to do? No.
mm, mm,
I will say, I think that, and this may be like the optimist in me, but I do think that people are, or people want to do what's best for kids.
mm-hmm,
Like whether they're Republican, Democrat, whether they're
mm-hmm,
business people or the cafeteria monitor or whatever. I
mm-hmm,
think that they want to do what's best for children.
mm-hmm,
We all have different ways of going about that,
mm,
and sometimes we can get so polarized, meaning like we retreat to the opposite ends of the spectrum
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
instead of trying to find a middle ground, like where interests converge.
okay,
And I think that's what's happening because with a problem this vast,
mm-hmm,
there is no way that schools or the individual actors or policy actors in schools can
make a
rectify it or
change.
correct it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
know, that's what we call like educationalization. So relying on the schools to
mm,
fix societal issues. But
mm,
like some of the things that you know you and I just took at face value could be considered educationalization, right? Like the DARE program,
mm-hmm,
the drugs thing.
mm-hmm,
Like, so we had an epidemic where young kids were using drugs. So
yeah,
how do we stop that? We go inside the school. We
mm,
talk about health.
mm-hmm,
So now they're taking, or healthy things are being put in schools. You know, so like
yeah,
there's no way that schools can solve all of these
all the
issues.
problems.
Yeah, so we have to have like this strategic collaboration between
Yeah,
all actors involved, you know, to make schools better. And that's what's not happening.
yeah, and
Like
also,
you're not fine, and I'm not saying this specifically, but
mm-hmm,
you aren't finding out what you need to do to make the schools
mm,
better. And then the people that are in this company that work down the street, they're not doing what they need to do.
mm-hmm,
I'm not doing what it is. We all have a role.
a role.
We're just not
Yeah.
filling it.
You know what? I think, but that's why I say, and I know that you don't want to get on TikTok, but maybe you can start a YouTube channel. I'm telling you, like, this is missing that education portion because people want to, like I said, they want to blame somebody. They want to say it's the parents. The parents don't spend enough time with the kids.
Mhm.
That may be true in a sense. However, like what you're saying, there's so many factors to why things aren't the ball isn't rolling the way that it should. There's been a complete shift in the way that we just live our lives. Like
Mhm.
even from when I graduated college, the world has completely changed.
Shout out to Norfolk State.
Hey, behold, behold. But been a complete change, and I think that there may need to be some changes or some upgrades to K-12 education, like the way that we do things may need to be evaluated, revised, definitely.
Yeah.
So, oh, did I cut you off there?
No, I was. Mm-mm. I mean, I can go on and on, but yeah.
So, do you think that we're going to segue? So, K-12, yes. higher education. So associate's degree, bachelor's, master's, PhD, doctorates, PhD. Do you think that they're beneficial now in 2024?
I am not a higher education scholar, so I'm probably not the best person to talk to about this.
Hmm.
Um, but do I think that they're beneficial?
Mm-hmm.
I I think that education is beneficial.
Mm.
So if that is what somebody wants to do, yeah, sure, absolutely. Um, Now, if we're talking about bargain, I think you have to think strategically about that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you ain't got no money and you like, I can go to this school that cost me $3 or the one that costs 300.
Yeah, make sense.
Yeah, yeah. But like, I've never. I'm hard pressed to find an example where people enhancing their knowledge or
Mm-hmm.
becoming more
Mm-hmm.
informed is
Mm-hmm.
detrimental to them.
I think people.
And you get, I'm sorry, Kiki, and
Mm,
you get more than just like, absolutely, even if it's not even for academics, like we learn to problem solve, deal with other people,
uh-huh.
become adults,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah.
in those settings.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, there's so much more that we learn from that process.
People discount. I think so. I'm an advocate for educating yourself. I do think that over the years there are, more ways for you to educate yourself. Like the traditional route of going to high school, college, you don't necessarily have to do that path anymore to quote unquote be successful. But
Hmm.
I think people discount higher education because of the price
Hmm.
or or the return on investment or the fact that they just couldn't get in and stick with it. And I
Hmm.
think, some people really, really, it's just like, hey, that may not be you, but you can't discount the person who was able to get in and stay in school. Like that, like you said, there's a lot that you learn about yourself, about the environment, dealing with people. Like you grow more
Hmm.
than, academically. And I think people that don't operate like that, they feel some type of way about the people that can.
Yeah, I think we've seen that. We both can name people. Yeah. But yeah, I think it goes to show just how important like those soft skills are, right?
Listen,
Um,
people don't
but I
have them.
mean, something that I heard and I've held on to it. Your IQ is what gets you hired. Your EQ is what gets you promoted.
Mm. Hold
So
on.
like,
Hold on, let me write that down. I'm listening.
so yeah, it's so important,
Mm-hmm.
to develop those skills because
Yep.
like academics or your intellect is only going to get you so far.
Yep.
Like I know for sure, and I'm not even like I can say that through experience because I am not like the most academically astute individual. But I knew that I had to have other ways to
Mm-hmm.
compensate. And I had to get out there, put myself out there, be someone that's friendly, get to know people, develop soft skills essentially.
Develop.
And
Develop.
yeah, because
Develop.
I didn't have them like naturally.
No. Neither
So
neither did I, but I think that's what school does. It puts you in situations where you are forced to grow.
mhm,
Like you're forced to learn how to communicate. You're forced to think strategically.
mhm.
So, okay. So I don't want to hold you too long, but what are you passionate about?
In education or
You can give me an education or just in life in general.
mm, I would say being a man of value,
Oh.
right? So not just like and when I say that, I mean like not just being like this man who people look at like, oh, I could tell he's different. Like
Yeah.
I want to be something for my community.
Yeah.
Like I want to be of service to my community.
Oh.
Um, I am very my community and my family. I'm very, very passionate about that. That's what drives everything that I do. Like
Oh.
I'm in education.
Thanks.
Like,
Thanks.
why would I go into education? Like, if
Yeah.
I didn't want to
Help.
serve people. Yeah, I want to serve people. I'm also passionate about like interdisciplinary studies.
Mhm.
Like everything connects,
Mhm.
so like I've been reading books on economics, urban
Oh.
planning,
Mhm.
education, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that fits. I
Mhm.
see like this is why this works, and you know, this is why they build certain houses here.
And that's why I need to say, okay, so business, right? That's
Mhm,
why I'm like, yes, my degrees cost me a lot financially, but I look at things differently. Like I'm able to think from a broader perspective
mhm,
from these classes. And I know that maybe along, like life would have gone along and I would have eventually started to think differently. But being in business and then, studying business more, you're kind of forced to think about the macroeconomic environment, the
mhm,
microeconomic environment. You see how things are connected. That's why when people say, no, we can't trade with them and we can't, it's just like, but that's going to
yeah,
affect X, Y, and Z. Or, you're able to say, well, if this happens, then there's always a consequence, a cause and effect.
yeah, yeah.
And so you think about those type of things when you know that they exist.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
we have this thing in doctoral studies, so like theoretical or conceptual frameworks.
okay.
And all that is like it's the theory that you kind of view the issue through. So
Hmm.
like it's
Teach
like
us,
the lens
teach us,
that you
Dr.
see things.
Moore.
Stop it.
Hmm.
The lens that you see things through, right?
Okay.
Um, so like if and it's kind of like that. Your lens is business. So
Hmm.
you can see everything or you see the world through this business lens. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that wasn't just a person handing them something. That was a transaction of goods, right?
Hmm.
Because that's the lens that you see things through. Um, so that just reminded me of that. That was it.
Okay.
And I'm
All
also passionate about learning music and fashion. I had to throw that in there.
right. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What book are you reading there?
Nothing right
Outside of
now.
your academic stuff.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I do not have the time. So I'm reading I want to read this YA lit book, like Children of Blood and Bone, Adiyame. She has her third, this is the third iteration. I forgot what it's called. But I went and bought the book
Hmm.
from Barnes and Noble because I was really excited. Read the first two, but I haven't had time to pick it up. So it's like literally sitting on my nightstand. And
Oh.
then I have an economics book in
Hmm.
my backpack that
Oh.
I just haven't gotten to yet.
Okay.
Not my backpack, my satchel. I'm not in middle school anymore.
What? So, okay, you've done the work. You've done the work over the last few years in your program. So you have the knowledge and the skills and practice, right? So what you can put is more than theory to you as far as like what you've been studying. So if someone would come to you, a parent, for example, or a school district, and they say, I need you to provide X, Y, and Z services, what services like could you provide? Like whether it's consulting or what would people come to you for?
Hmm, that's a good question.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll take it back to like full service community schools.
Okay.
So because these are schools that serve their community,
Hmm.
we have to know what it is the community needs.
Mm.
Like not every community needs the same thing. So I'm very skilled at research. You
No.
could send me out there to conduct what are called oh, essentially like community inventories.
Hmm.
So what is it that the community needs, and like how do we scale down to what we can offer?
Okay.
Um, I, I'm also skilled at like evaluation. So if we're going to implement something or implement a policy or a new
Hmm.
program, how do we know that this is working or that it's going to work?
Okay.
Um, so I can, I can do that. Um,
I have
Shoot,
one.
I feel like after dissertation, whatever you need me to do, I can wash clothes. I can,
I
I can like yeah, whatever. I
have
don't.
another one though. So, y'all, he did mention that he's passionate about music. So he's been playing drums since forever. He's a very good drummer. So that's something else that you can provide. So if somebody, Zaya, wanted to not pick your brain, right? But if somebody needed to receive your services or they had questions on education policy, which you are an expert in, how do you want them to contact you?
Yeah. So I work with some mentors of
Mm-hmm.
mine. Um, we do like professional developments. We present at conferences.
So you're a good
Um,
speaker.
yes, I,
Okay.
I,
You
I can talk
speak.
a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay.
Um, and these were actually former teachers of mine,
Okay.
who were black men. Um, and then there was another student who was older than me that I looked up to. We
Okay.
actually just presented at a conference less than a month ago, a
You have
statewide
videos.
conference.
Videos. You have proof that you were there.
I have proof, but it's not a video. um, so we are on Facebook. We're
Okay.
called the Warwick Group,
Okay.
WARWARWICK,
Uh-huh.
the Warwick Group,
Group. Okay.
because we met at Warwick High School.
Okay. Newport
Um,
News.
indeed, shout it out 757. And that's very, very that
Mhm.
story, and I'm not just saying it because I'm a part of it, is
Mm.
very powerful.
Okay.
So people can reach me there.
Uh-huh.
I'm also on Twitter at
Okay.
More Ed Policy.
More in
So
policy.
More Ed Policy. So
Uh,
MOOREED
uh-huh.
Policy.
Okay.
POLICY.
Thank you for spelling it. LinkedIn.
Isaiah Moore on LinkedIn.
We gotta brand yourself. You need to be need the same name across all platforms.
Well, not on LinkedIn. That's my professional. And
Well,
I would have to create I don't have like a profession or yeah, like a professional Facebook and Instagram. Like those are personal.
yeah, time to get one.
Well, have a I need to have something to market, but
You
so
do. Your knowledge is what you're marketing.
okay.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to say to the people, Zaya? Any last words?
Yeah. Again, I want to shout out my beautiful talented sister Akila Moore, who facilitated this conversation. She's killing them out there in Dallas. I'm so proud of you. I want to shout out my mama. What's up, Neat? I want to give a big shout out to my sister Jevi. Um, Shout out to my homies. Uh, Shout out to Morehouse College. It was just
Okay.
homecoming week. Shout out to William and Mary. Shout out to Virginia Commonwealth University.
Okay.
757. We here.
You shouted out the whole community.
Look, I'm a community school scholar.
What
So
about
like,
Daddy? You gonna shout out Daddy?
oh, I didn't say my dad.
No, you didn't.
Shout out to Alfred Moore Jr. He the GOAT.
I'm telling.
Yeah, he out here. Shout out to Jade.
Yes, my boo Jade.
Um, Shout out to Jasmine
Okay.
McLean, and
Okay.
Jasmine Woods. Shout out to
Oh.
Twan Smith.
All right now. No.
These are the homies. Hold on, I ain't shout out the House of Homage.
No, you did not.
Chris, Day Day West, Poop. Shout out to my man BY.
Yes,
Rest in
yes.
peace, my brother. Um, Mel. Did I forget? I hope I ain't forget nobody. Did I say all of them?
Our niece and nephew. You shout them
Hold on,
out.
I'm not done. I'm not done. Shout out Lil Dante, Jared, um,
Uh,
King Blake,
oh,
bro, all my homies, all of them. Shout out to Jalur and Jameson.
yes.
Is, is there anybody else?
Well, if we shout out Jalorin Jameson, then we gotta shout out Nolan and Milan.
Oh, Nolan the Great. Look him up on Instagram.
Yes,
Nolan the Great.
yes.
Oh, I didn't even shout out my brothers, Ray and Jamel. Sorry, y'all. I'm tired.
Okay, okay. So thank you so much, Zaya.
Shout
Thank
out
you
to
for
Keisha, my cousin Eric, my cousin Quan.
go ahead and just run down the family tree. God dang.
I shouldn't have started. Shout out to Sam Logan,
Yeah.
Dyron Ford, Dion Garner, Coach
I'm
Rob.
tagging all of them. You know that, right?
Please do.
I'm gonna tag all. Okay.
Coach Rob. I said Coach Rob. Did I say Coach?
No.
I did say Coach Rob.
Oh, I didn't hear that
Yeah, out
one.
there in DC killing them.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure some other people, but that's all I can think of right
okay. Okay. Thank you, Zaya, so much for taking your time out of your day. He's very busy just trying to work through this dissertation or to prep for it. And so I appreciate your time. We are going to have more meetings or more sessions, more interviews with you. So you can enlighten the community on what we need to look for when it comes to education policy. And so your credentials, so you're going to be Dr. Isaiah Moore?
now.
Okay. All right. Well,
PhD,
PhD. Okay.
not MD. Can't help you there.
Thank you there. Say bye.
Peace out.